I got a message from Kimmy who said, with baseball back, would you care to share any of your favorite memories of baseball with your dad on the podcast? Yes, I would. Hey, you, how's it going? How are you? It's AD Roundtree. Welcome to this, your Monday edition of the show. Yeah, your Monday, your new day of your new week, your clean slate, your fresh start, a chance for you and I to move forward together into whatever it is that happens next. A chance for you to kick an entirely new week directly where it counts. You're doing awesome. Hang in there. You got this. You are a badass. And if you need something, if there's anything I can do for you to make your Monday better, hit me up. I'm here with you. I'm here for you. At ADSXE. It's where you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at ADSXE. Put it in your phone now in case you need it later. Oh, nope. It was not a home run. It was close, but it was not. And I say that because I am watching the Mets, who are currently up by 3 against the Philadelphia Phillies. You know, it's an interesting one. The storied rivalry between the Phillies and the Mets goes back years. But, I don't know, for whatever reason, it kind of cooled down a little bit. Did you notice that? If you are a Phillies fan or a Mets fan, did you notice how it was almost like we started getting along? For Mets fans, at least this Mets fan, the real problem was with the Washington Nationals. They had Max Scherzer. They had all the money, they had all the options, and they went out and got Max Scherzer, who is, of course, unbelievably devastating on the mound. And they had Bryce Harper. And they had that guy Jason Worth, who was open about his contempt for the Mets. And, well, I, generally speaking, have no problem with anyone. I've got no problem with other baseball fans. I mean, it's a game. I love it when we win. I love the Mets when they lose. I just love the Mets. I love baseball. Baseball's my happy place. But for a while, I would see somebody. I remember it happened when I was on a plane. I would see someone get on the plane wearing a Washington Nationals hat, and I'd be like, "Ugh, F that guy." It made no sense. It's completely unreasonable. And I didn't actually think that, but that was my knee-jerk response. And then Bryce Harper left for the Phillies, and Jason Worth retired. And Max Scherzer went to the LA Dodgers and eventually to the Mets, and I realized I didn't necessarily have a problem with the Nationals as much as I did with Bryce Harper. Call it what you want, but there was just something about him that got under the skin of every single Mets fan. There's a pretty good chance we would have been over freaking joyed if he decided to come and play with the Mets in free agency, but, that plus the Nationals really kind of, I don't know, they had this swagger of a team that had won numerous championships before they'd won the championships. I think that was the general consensus, not just among Mets fans, but baseball fans in general, that noticed the folks that played for the Washington Nationals just seemed a little too pleased with themselves for a bunch of guys that never brought home rings. But then they did. Good for them. And, at the very least, you see someone like Juan Soto get a ring, and you're like, yeah, that hangs together. That makes sense. That's okay. All right, then. And it was interesting. The rivalry with the Phillies heated back up when Bryce Harper went over to the Phillies. And I think a lot of Mets fans were like, oh, maybe I didn't hate the Nats. Maybe I just hated Bryce Harper. I don't know. But I do know that the Mets-Phillies rivalry is back on. And you know what? The first season of this series was the Mets taking on the Washington Nationals. A series where they hit numerous Mets batters in the face. That was not a good look. You hit Pete Alonso in the face, you hit Francisco Lindor in the face, and naturally this means war. So the storied rivalry between the Mets and the Phillies is alive and well, and it looks like it's back on with the Mets and the Washington Nationals. Anyways, I digress. Kimmy wanted to know about some of my favorite memories with my dad that pertain to baseball. Now, here's the thing. I think anybody that spent any time playing baseball and got into it has realized it's an absolutely heartbreaking game. One thing that baseball does is, well, it builds and evidences character. First and foremost, when you play baseball, it's an interesting mixture of personal responsibility and responsibility to your teammates. You're playing a position. No one else is playing that position. It's your job to cover your part of the field. It's your job to catch the ball if it comes your way. It's your job to hit the cutoff person, whoever that might happen to be. It's your job to step on the bag. It's your job to get the out. And, well, that being the case, it teaches you that you got to do your thing. Why? Well, because it's your thing to do, and also because you don't want to let your teammates down. Like I said, an interesting mix of responsibility to yourself and responsibility to others. The other thing is, if you hit 50% of the time in baseball, meaning you fail to hit the other 50% of the time, if you go down in flames, swinging and missing half the time, you're doing an amazing job as a baseball player. So it teaches you to fail. It teaches you to fail regularly. It teaches you to fail more than almost half the time. And it teaches you to get back in the box and go for it again. And that is an invaluable skill. It wasn't where I ended up now, but that served me really, really well in the past. It was interesting. I went through a negotiation, a few contracts back in the world of radio. And I have an agent. I have a couple of agents. They are great. They really, really know what they're doing. They represent people that are much bigger than me, that earn much more than I do, that are really kind of way, way more up in the game than I am now, and maybe than I ever will be. Some of the very biggest, some of the biggest of all time. And freaking peanuts is what my deal was worth compared to some of the other things they were working on. Like literal peanuts, peanut shells, if that. And they said to me, we want to congratulate you for getting through this negotiation. And like I said, it was a few negotiations ago. I was like, really? Why? They're like, we checked. This is the longest, most arduous negotiation we have ever been through. I was like, my little piddly non-entity of a contract? They're like, yeah. And I was like, that seems strange. They're like, it kind of sort of is, but you know what? It went on for a very, very long time. You got in the batter's box, and they threw directly at your head over and over again, and you didn't give. You didn't flinch. You kept coming back going, oh yeah, I like chin music. What more do you got? And I was like, yeah, I guess playing baseball as a kid kind of sort of gave me that. Realizing things are going to be tough and arduous and involve a lot of failure, I think sets you up well in life. Not because failing is awesome, but it's not the failing that matters. It's whether you get back after it, whether you can get back in the box, whether you can stop and refocus and let the fact that someone threw directly at your head, let the fact that you struck out last time go, and step in there like you're going to knock it out of the park, because you know eventually you will. And, well, that was one of my favorite baseball memories, I think, was the losing. And it wasn't my favorite thing to go through at the time, but I remember being on my Little League team, and I remember some kid next to me being like, we're done. We're toast. They're ahead by 3 runs, and it's the bottom of the 9th. We're not coming back. I remember getting so mad, going, you can speak for yourself. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to knock it out of the park. I went up there, and I did not knock it out of the park. I was so pumped up with all this adrenaline, all this righteous rage at the other team for beating us, at my teammate for not believing on us. And I was determined to have this magical, poetic moment where everything changed. And because I connected with the ball, well, we would be back in it. We were not back in it. It was the grim taste of defeat delivered to a kid in a Little League game. And I remember being in the car on the way home with my dad after that game and being like, I really wanted that. He was like, yeah, but you're not always going to get that sort of thing in baseball or in life. But you're going to get up there in the next game. You're going to have another shot. And maybe you will then. And that's what matters. And even if you don't, you're going to have another shot. You're going to get more and more at-bats the longer you stay in the game, and eventually something will click. And he was right. I can't remember when, but I was responsible for a game-winning home run not long after. I was responsible for an RBI double that I stretched into a triple. Didn't make it home. I don't even know if we won. But all these little failures, they led to successes. And learning how to lose was an incredibly valuable thing. My dad was very clear on that. And I think he knew. He played baseball. He played baseball at a much higher level than I ever did. He was a star pitcher. He had a curveball that was, well, I know this because we used to play catch in the backyard, and occasionally he would throw me that curve. It was impossible to catch almost. And I'm pretty sure that's why nobody ever hit it. He had a vicious curve with crazy sink. A pitch that no high school player probably had any right to be throwing, but he was. And he was, by all accounts, lights out. I remember hearing about this from my aunts and my uncle about my dad. They're like, yeah, he was kind of a snotty little brother, but man, was he good at baseball. And I remember talking to him about that and saying, like, I heard you were amazing in high school. He was like, I did have this one moment, it was a big game, where got hit in the mouth by a line drive. Knocked down, but picked the ball up and threw the runner out at first to win the game. And emerged mouth bloodied and triumphant. Hero moment. Gatorade bath carried off on the shoulders and all of the above. I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. He was like, it was. And that's what you remember. And that's what your aunts and uncles remember. But there were a lot of losses. A lot of times people hit home runs off of me. A lot of times where things did not go my way. And they're all worth it to get to those moments. Those magical moments of taking a line drive to the face and throwing the runner out at first to win the big game. Baseball teaches you how to lose, which I think in many ways is more important than learning how to win. You do things often enough, you're resilient enough, you come back enough, and eventually you're going to get to that win. Whatever it happens to be. And it's a strange thing, but I suppose one of my favorite memories of baseball with my dad was him and baseball teaching me that losing, and losing a lot, is an inevitable price you pay to play the game. But if you're not playing the game, if you're not willing to take the losses, you're not going to get to the wins. So yeah, my dad taught me about losing, which is a strange thing to say, but probably one of the most valuable things that ever happened to me. Then, of course, there was a time that my dad realized I had an arm and I could pitch. And, well, he called my mom, We were playing catch outside. I started throwing the heat, and he was amazed. Threw the catcher's mitt. His hand hurt. And he was like, ow. I was like, Dad, you okay? He was like, yeah. Yeah, that was great. He called my mom. He's like, come see what the boy can do. Fired in there. It was the best. I'll never forget it. I love you, Dad. For a lot of things. But ironically, teaching me about losing through baseball is one of the things I'll always appreciate the most. Thank you so much for hanging. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. As always, this time that you and I spend together, it's the best part of my day. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. Have a great one. Later.